guys, what kind of trends are we seeing in your industry? Of course, you're in a crowded sector, we know, and I think you've done you guys are really trying to differentiate yourselves. Anything new you can share on trends in the industry that you see some other senior care franchises or non-franchise alike that are doing?
Well, I'll say that yes, it's a crowded space, Frank, but there's a lot of large companies. Like Josh likes to say, this is home care 2.0, right? And the reason we're saying that is because there's many companies that have grown to over 600 sold franchise units, and they mostly expanded late 90s, early 2000s, and they just simply don't. They're doing resales. They're doing international. They're just not selling a lot of new territory. They don't have a lot of new territories available. You can't just stop with those number of companies because the number of seniors, is going through the roof, as everyone knows.
Right.
So I would say in the industry, as far as industry trends, Josh kind of touched on the fact that we have a increasing number of third-party payer options that are becoming available through the VA, through Medicaid, through Medicare Part C. It's just trending that the government is basically saying, both state and federal, hey, this isn't sustainable. The facility model, right? A lot of seniors out there are just kind of stuck in nursing homes under Medicaid. If people are familiar, it's just people who run out of money, and basically the government says, hey, we'll pay for you to go to a nursing home. The nursing homes, if you walk in these places, it doesn't matter what it looks like from the outside or when you first sit in the lobby. That looks pretty nice usually, but then you get back there, which I've been back there many, many times. It's sad,
Yeah.
quite honestly, and it's also very expensive, right? So between those two things, the government moves at a snail's pace, but between those two things, everything's kind of trending toward the government. The reimbursement rates, for example, from the VA, often, most of the time are higher than what someone would pay privately. So, we're seeing more and more of that. And, toward the end of a candidate getting through the process of us vetting them to see if they're a good candidate for us, we can kind of really pinpoint where, their specific territory that they're interested in. What are the third-party payer options? How much is the VA paying for services in your area? Is Medicaid an option? Like, what are those options? So we see that it's already been increasing for the last couple of years, and that's why we think that this is kind of home care 2.0.
Yeah. What kind of range? And I'm sure it varies greatly, but I'm just kind of curious of what kind of range a customer would pay.
It depends on the market. It's really determined by the wages in that area, right? The rate is determined by the wages and the margins associated with it. So, but I'd say in general, it's between the low and high $30 per hour. That would be a cost. It's traditionally done by the hour.
And what would you say is the average number of hours in a day that the caregiver is with the client?
Yeah, so we're averaging, give or take. It depends on the location. Some locations have a fewer clients with a lot of hours, and others, focus on just getting as many clients as possible. But it's averaging about 30 hours. I'll give it to you in a weekly amount, about 30 hours per week per client, give or take. Because we're not necessarily with them every day. A client might say, hey, I want you 8 hours, 3 days a week, because those are the days that, I can't be with dad because I have to work, or those are the days that dad needs a bath, or whatever it might be. So it depends on the client's needs. Some clients want you to come just a few hours a day every day. It really just depends. And that RN assessment will help determine what that specific person needs.
Okay. Josh, you mentioned earlier, we talked about territory, and we look for territories with seniors, right? Greater than 40, at least 40,000 seniors, right? Or I think actually, Chad, you might have mentioned that. How do you guys determine, though, even within that, how do you determine what markets that you want to be into? I understand you guys are in like 5 states right now. Is there a particular criteria that you're looking for in addition to seniors on where you're trying to expand this?
All of the major markets out there are great demographics for our industry. When we're carving up a territory, we look at 3 main things to make sure that it's viable for the candidate. The first would be the number of seniors, obviously. And I'll say that while we're cutting them right now with 40,000 seniors, at the rate with which people are aging, that's going to increase in time. So 5 years from now, it may have 10% more people over 65 in that territory. So those territories are only going to grow as time progresses. The second thing that we look at is the proximity to the caregivers. The number one thing, well, there's two things caregivers care about: how much they get paid and how far they got to drive. And so we want to make sure that our territories are established in a way that we've got a good caregiver pool close by that can adequately service the entire geography of the territory. And then the third thing, as I mentioned before, is that the vast majority of our leads and our prospects come from a professional referral. And so we want to look at what are the senior facilities, what are the hospitals, skilled nursing, assisted living, medical home health, hospice. We look at everything that's in that area and kind of determine, is there enough professional referral business here? And if not, is there enough third party, as Chad was mentioning, like VA or Medicaid business, one or the other, or both, ideally, to make it a viable territory. And so there's not necessarily really any hotbeds of senior activity around the country, but all the major markets have very viable territories. And for us, they're all still available.
Okay. Are you guys selling just single units, or are you open to multi-unit franchises?
We'll do both. All of our current franchisees started as single units. Our first location bought a second territory a couple of years ago. So they're the only ones that are operating 2 territories right now, but we're certainly open with the right candidate to do a multi-territory arrangement.
Great. Congrats on that. That's a great compliment anytime somebody wants to buy a second unit.
It is, absolutely. Yeah. And they're doing a fantastic job.
Sweet. What's the long-term vision for the company? How big is big for you guys, you thinking?
Well, we've kicked around a lot of things, Frank, but yeah, we're expecting, with our new partnership with the Repum Group, exponential growth. We want to be one of the big players nationwide, 300 plus units.
Sweet. Coast to coast?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I mean, the plan is has always been to use. We love to say we like taking a negative and turning to a positive. The formation of our company was because of that, and we just want to make our, grandmother proud of what we've done in her memory. And, a lot of our franchisees have similar stories. And so we're looking for the right candidate, right? They're passionate for some reason or another for senior care. Most people don't come to us, candidates that want to get in the business because they just want to make money. That's not a good fit for us. You can make a lot of money in this industry if you have the right mentality, which is to help people. So, we don't want to grow too quickly without that as well.
What do you think is one of the most important pieces of advice that you give to people who are looking at the franchise in terms of setting their expectations right?
Yeah, I'll go first on that. I'd be interested to hear what Chad says as well. But I think 2 things. The first is, this isn't senior care is not like a restaurant where you build buzz and then on the first night there's a line out the door and everyone can't wait to come in and try the new restaurant. Senior care is not that at all. It's, as I've said several times now, it's referral based. And so those are relationships, and relationships take a while to build. And so the first expectation that we want to set with anybody that's interested in joining our team here is that there's going to be several months. We normally say you're going to break even around month 8 or 9. And every single person we've told this to, and without fail, every single one gets to around month 5 or 6, and they have that panic breakdown. Like, I'm not there. What's happening? This isn't working. None of this is working. You don't know what you're doing. Like, just see the plan through. Just keep showing up. Use the launch guides that we gave you, and continue to show up and do your work. And when you do your work, it's going to pay off. And every time our location in Philadelphia, they bought a second territory. And I'll say this because Chris has told other people that everything turned around for him when he stopped fighting us and started listening to what we were telling him to do. And so everybody's had that panic moment, Frank. And so that's the number one thing we talk about from very early on in the sales process is it's going to be a slow ramp. You just got to do your work and see it through. The second little bit that I would add on to that is it's hard work too. You got to get out there. You got to hustle. Chad and I like to use the word grind. You got to embrace the grind and get out there and just work hard. It will build on itself. And then once you have established your base, then you kind of can pull your foot off the gas a little bit because you've got the snowball, it's got some momentum at that point, but you got to work hard out of the gate to get it established. We've got systems and processes, and we've got all the back end stuff that you need to put in place and kind of plug and play, but you still have to do the play part. You still have to go out and work the system.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.